In Money Watch now, millions of Americans are waiting in limbo for their money from the government. The IRS is holding 29 million tax returns for manual processing, delaying tax refunds. Usually the IRS sends the money within 3 weeks of taxpayers filing their returns. But a backlog of 2019 paper tax returns is one of the issues bogging down processing this year. So to break this all down, we have CBS News Money Watch reporter Amy Peakey. Thanks for joining us, Amy. Why is there such a backlog of 2019 paper tax returns?
Yeah, well, it all stems back to the pandemic. Last year when the pandemic shut down the U.S. economy, the IRS also shut down its offices, and they basically couldn't deal with paper returns last year. So what they did was they put paper returns in trailers and just left them until they were able to get back to their offices or get to them and start processing them. And in the IRS, they handle tax returns as they come. So basically, they have to handle all the paper tax returns that came in last year before they get to the ones for this year. So there's already a backlog of millions of paper returns from last year. And that was one of the reasons why the IRS earlier this year said, please do not file on paper. If you want a quick tax refund, file electronically because there is already a backlog. But for some people, they can't file electronically for different reasons, or they just like filing on paper. And so they are facing a longer wait, unfortunately, this year.
Yeah, so I would expect that most people, file electronically, and there would be particular groups of people who are more likely to file on paper and be affected by this. So who's more likely to be affected by this?
Yeah, well, honestly, it's probably more low-income people who are affected by this, and also people who live abroad. Some people who live abroad outside the U.S. actually can't file electronically, so that's another issue. But one thing that is troubling about this is that there are also tax refunds that are being delayed because of these certain types of tax credits called the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. And the reason for this is that there was a provision in the December spending bill that also added some stimulus money that said you can use either your 2019 income or 2020 income to determine whether you get these tax credits. And that was great for a lot of people, but unfortunately the IRS now is saying, well, if you use your 2019 income to get these tax credits in your 2020 tax returns, we have to go and manually check to make sure and verify to make sure that that income is correct and you actually do qualify for these credits. And that's troubling because a lot of the people who qualify for these tax credits are low-income households. The earned income tax credit is targeted toward low-income households. The child tax credit is a little more complicated in that it actually tends to help middle-class families a little bit more than low-income families. And the reason why some families might want to look at their 2019 income to qualify for this is because if they earned more in 2019, they actually might get more for their child tax credit on their 2020 returns if they use their 2019 income, which I know that's a little complicated, but the main issue there is, the IRS needs to basically just go back and check their records and say, okay, you did earn this in 2019, we can give you this tax credit this year, but it's adding to the time to process those returns.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the thing about it is, chances are you need that money, that child tax credit. If you're one of those people that's going to the trouble of, looking back at your 2019 income and all that sort of stuff, then chances are you need every cent. So now I presume what this means is, in a way, is if you fall under, this category where you're using the child tax credit or, any of these issues, then even if you file electronically, you kind of revert to being like a manual filer because it's going to take time. What are the implications for this? I mean, how long could people be waiting for the money that they need?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So unfortunately, even if you filed electronically, but you are using these tax credits and using this provision to rely on past income to qualify, they have to check this manually. So you're kind of at the back of the line in a way. People are reporting waits of 5-6 weeks. I actually got an email from a reader this morning saying he finally got through to the IRS and he has been told that he's looking at a 10-week wait. So that is a long time to wait for your refund, given that the IRS says most refunds are sent within 3 weeks. So people were probably expecting, I'm going to get my refund in 3 weeks. And instead they're looking at 5, 6, 10 weeks.
Yeah, and when you said he finally got through to the IRS, I just had sort of flashback nightmares of trying to get through to a human being on that IRS phone number, and just, you got to block off, like, sit down and watch a movie while you wait, because you got to block off a lot of time usually. So other than just sitting around and waiting and kind of griping about it, is there anything else you can do?
Unfortunately, there's not much you can do. This is one of the things that the IRS taxpayer advocate has called out the IRS about this, saying that the IRS needs to, first of all, provide more information to taxpayers about how long it's going to take for them to get their refund. The average refund is $3,600, a little over $3,600. So for a lot of people, it's their biggest paycheck of the year, and they're relying on this to pay bills, to pay down debt, to get through, particularly this tough time right now. And so she's saying, there's a site where you can log in, where's my refund? But it really doesn't tell you when you're going to get your refund. It just says whether your tax return has been processed, has been accepted and processed yet. But it doesn't give you a date for when, necessarily won't give you a date for when you're going to get your tax refund. So she's saying, look, the IRS needs to provide more information to taxpayers, and also provide more information on the phone. She had a statistic in her latest report saying, I think something like only 7 to 8% of callers actually got through to a person at the IRS. So that is also troubling. People give up. They call the IRS. As you mentioned, they're facing long wait times on the phone, and they give up. They're frustrated. So, step one, I think, is probably somehow providing more information to taxpayers so that they know when they're going to get that much needed money.
So true. Well, at least we have you, Amy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
So you can read Amy's whole article on the IRS refund delay on cbsnews.com/moneywatch.